You are golden, you are good enough, like your fire from within. You're inspired, you inspire us, it's gonna be all good again.
My name is Brianna. Welcome back to the Roar Indie Author Interview Series. Today we have a really exciting author with us, and just a little foreshadowing, if you will, she actually has already been able to do a virtual author visit. So this is Laura. I'm going to butcher your last name, Reettiger. Did I do it right?
Roettiger.
Roettiger! I knew I was going to mess it up, even with all that rehearsal. Laura Roettiger. So just a little teaser there. She's already had her author visit, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And she's going to share with us about her book. So Laura, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have this conversation. So let's get to the basic question. What really inspired you to be an author?
Well, I've always wanted to be a writer. I have been writing since I was in school, in grade school. I submitted poetry for a magazine in third grade.
Oh,
I wrote letters to my grandparents who lived far away. I had a pen pal in second grade. I've always enjoyed writing. So
that's incredible. Oh, I have pen pals. That seems like such a foreign concept, but I had a pen pal too. See, tangent. There we go. Now tell us a little bit about the book that is in the Roar Random Acts of Reading initiative.
So my book, Aliana Reaches for the Moon, is about a little girl who notices how bright the full moon is and spends a month researching the phases of the moon and experimenting with light and reflection, so that when the moon is going to be full again, she can create something for her little brother Gustavo, and it's his birthday the following day after the night of the full moon. So she creates something so that when the light of the full moon comes in through her skylight, it reflects. I'm going to ruin the ending, spoiler alert. It reflects on her creation, and it looks like a birthday cake. It looks like candle.
Oh, that is awesome. What a unique idea. How did you come up with that?
Well, I had just moved to the Rocky Mountains in 2016 after living in Chicago my entire life. And in Chicago, with all of the light pollution, I had never really experienced how bright the full moon is. And where I moved, there was virtually no light pollution, living up at altitude of over 8,000 feet and in the forest. And the brightness of the full moon, I thought there was a car in my driveway.
I totally understand. I totally understand that.
I had other reasons I was inspired for the book. There's a lot of things that went into writing the book that were inspirations, but the brightness of the full moon was truly based on that. And so so that was part of my inspiration. The other things about the inspiration for the book were my own daughters and students that I had been teaching in the city of Chicago. So I had a lot of different things that I pieced together to create the book. And I did, I may be jumping ahead here, sorry.
Okay.
I did a virtual visit, as you said, with a school that has the Roar vending machine. And one of the questions that a student asked me is, did I create this to see if it worked? Did I do the experiment myself? Which was a great question.
Yeah.
And what I said was, it's not whether an experiment works or not. The point of the book is to inspire creativity and curiosity. So, and that is completely based on my own children, and something I really worked to inspire in my students. And I watched my own children, who were always inspiring me because they wanted to create things. And they would say, I'm going to make this, or I'm going to draw this, or I'm going to create this. And I'd be like, I don't know if that's going to work. And they could make it work.
Yeah.
And even if it didn't work, they were trying things, and that's what science is. That's what
Yeah.
it is trying things. And a lot of science is you try something, 50
Hmm.
times, and the 49 times doesn't work, but that 50th time does. And that's really what you want children to understand. That's the takeaway.
That's that. I love that. I think that's incredible. It's a great message. I say that to my son all the time. I have a
Yeah,
5-year-old and he's like, Mommy, it didn't work. And I was like, yeah, but I didn't get it. I can't do it. And I was like, yeah, but next time you can. Like, you're not going to be great at everything. You got to practice and work and try. So
exactly.
I love that message. I think that's incredible. So, what age is your book best suited for?
Well, that's always the trick question with picture books. I think picture books, I think picture books are great for ages 3 to 100.
Hmm.
So, um, I've had a lot of children at age, 3 and 4 really enjoy the book, and I've done school visits with third and fourth graders who ask much different types of questions, right?
Yeah.
And they get something different from the book. So there is no perfect age because at a different age and stage, you're going to get something different out of the book. And I did a author visit at a bookstore when I went back to Chicago when the book first
Hmm.
came out at a suburban bookstore, and there was an near where I grew up, and there was an older woman um, who came to the story time, and I kept looking at her, thinking, do I know her? Was she a neighbor? Is she the mother of a friend? And she had somebody with her. She wasn't by herself. She couldn't be she needed a care.
Hmm.
And I asked the person from the bookstore who she was, and he said, "Oh, she comes every Saturday for story time. She loves story time."
Oh.
And I think that speaks to what picture books really are. Picture books invite everybody in. It doesn't matter how old you are. We all
That's
bond
precious.
over stories.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So, for your story in particular, what do you admire about your protagonist?
Well, she's she's kind, she's creative, and she's curious.
Mm.
And the family itself is a very kind family.
Hmm.
They're nice to each other, they're patient with each other. Her brother knows it's his birthday coming up, and he's asking her about, something, and she says, "You have to be patient," to him.
Oh my gosh, that's so true, kids.
And her parents have to be patient because she's making a mess, and they know they have to be patient.
Oh, this is another
And
good message.
so exactly. So that's a very good message. And one of the things that, and I knew as a parent, my children are grown now. As a parent, I needed to be patient when my children were trying things. I know it's very hard. You just said you have a 5-year-old. It's hard
Hmm.
when you're watching your child do something and they're just making this enormous mess. And you're like, I could do that myself for you, and it would just be so much easier, and you
Hmm.
wouldn't have to clean that up. But that's not what you really want to be teaching your child,
Mm-mm.
right? So it's one of those things that in the long run you're better off letting them try it and making that mess as long as no one's
Yeah.
getting harmed in the process.
Absolutely. That's
So,
so funny you say that. My kid always wants to try everything. Yesterday, he wanted to mix the dog food. And of course, the dog food went all over the floor. I was
right.
like, okay, here we go. We're just going to clean it up. He's like, oh,
Right.
mommy, I'm sorry. And I said, it's okay. We just clean it up.
Right. I mean,
So, yeah.
if somebody doesn't catch fire or
Yeah,
get, run over or, things that are
exactly.
clearly a problem, it's not the end of the world. And I do think that allowing children to do those things is a very
Hmm.
important part of them gaining the confidence
Absolutely.
to try other things,
Absolutely.
right? And I
100%.
do have very confident adult children, so it did work.
This experiment has been tried.
Exactly.
And the conclusion is.
But the
I love
other thing
it.
that was for me that's really interesting. So before the book was coming out, we sent it to a couple of different. We wanted some endorsements for the
Hmm.
book, and on the back of the book are a couple of astronomer endorsements.
Oh, cool.
And um, I had reached out to the shed shed aquarium. I'm sorry, I was just reading a book that talked about the shed aquarium, which is not what I sent it to. The Adler Planetarium. Sorry, I literally had just finished reading a book about the shed aquarium yesterday. The Adler Planetarium, which is in,
Hmm.
and I had sent it to this woman asking her if she would read it and possibly endorse the book. And Penny, I forget, I were asking different people. And she said, we only endorse books that are written by, you know, people who work for the
Hmm.
planetarium. But she didn't realize it was a picture book. And I had attached it. And then half an hour later, she replied again. She said, I didn't realize that you had included the book. And she said, I love this. It teaches parents that science can be messy. And has a great message. And she is one of the endorsements on the back of the book.
That's
And
awesome.
it was wonderful. It was the first feedback I had gotten from somebody who wasn't directly attached to me or somebody involved with the book, right? That was
Hmm.
understanding all of the messages that were, embedded in the story. So that felt really good.
That's really awesome. I love that you reached out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
talk about raising confident kids, but just being the confident parent, and a confident
exactly.
writer. Like, you never know until you try, kind of thing. I think
Right.
that resonates in so many ways.
Right.
Um, so you've completed this book. Do you have any other works that you've done, or anything you're working on, or something
Yeah.
coming, anything like that?
Yep. This my second book is coming out next February. So February 13th, 2024.
Okay.
And that book is called An Accidental Hero, a
Hmm.
mostly true wombat story. And I wrote it in the beginning of 2020,
Okay.
um, right? And it was during the fires in Australia and New South Wales.
Okay.
And now, obviously, with smoke
Hmm.
uh, covering, our country from Canada.
Hmm.
And one of my daughters actually lives in New York. So, the
That's tricky right now.
as we're recording this, they are being, you know, covered in the smoke
Yeah.
from the fires there. We are our planet is not it's not doing well. So the idea that we're having, this is a recurring problem.
Absolutely. I
And
mean, wildfires happen all the time in California too, and we've just gotten so used to it. But
right. Well, and I live in Colorado. So we have wildfires here. We had a major one at the end of 2021 where
hmm
over 1,000, I guess, homes burned to the ground
hmm
and in Boulder County, which is right
hmm
there where I live. And so it's a subject that is obviously very important to the planet and
Yes.
to me. But when in the beginning of 2020, when that was the number one news story every
hmm
day, and it was heartbreaking, and the number of animals that were dying and
hmm
being found dead, but they found different species of animals alive in the wombat burrows. And
Oh,
so when I learned of that, um,
wow.
it was very important to me to figure out a way to write that story, to share that with children, and to write a story of hope. And that's what
hmm
the story is about. And it's written as a newscast.
Oh,
So
that's a really cool perspective
yeah,
too. So
and
creative.
thank you. So I'm super excited. And that one's also being published by iFric Publishing.
Oh, that's awesome. And so I see, I didn't hear about the creatures being found in the burrows. It was just like they had all just like kind of come together for safety.
They
Wow.
the way wombat burrows are built. They just keep digging and digging. So there's space in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were able to find shelter in there. And the rescuers were able to find other animals in the burrows. Yeah.
Wow, that's really incredible. There's this book, speaking of wombats, that my son loves called The Diary of a Wombat,
Uh-huh.
not produced by any publishers. It's more mainstream. I
Right.
think it's won a couple of awards, uh,
I,
but he
I,
loves
I
the
know
book.
that book. It's
Yeah,
been out for 20 years. Yeah.
yeah. It's an incredible book, and he thinks it's hilarious. But just as you're saying, that shows you like the way they burrow in the book and how he's always
Right.
digging a hole, and that's incredible to me that it was able to save other creatures' lives too. Like
Right.
just that little tunnel was able. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we love animals in my house. Like I told my husband, I was like, be prepared for your son to be a vegetarian because he doesn't understand why the fish need to die or be used as bait for other animals.
Right.
We live in Florida, so we have a lot of water around,
Hmm.
and we just came back from a trip, and he was like devastated that the kids next door in our hotel room were using crabs as bait. So he was like, "Mommy, no!" I was like, I don't know what to say. Circle of life. Like maybe we need to watch The Lion King. I don't know. Anyway, that's my tangent. Let's get back to you and what it means for you to be part of Roar and the Golden Ticket to Literacy.
Well, it was really exciting for me to partner with Roar and I did a virtual visit with the whole school that
Mm-hmm.
has I think the first vending machine, um, and the Center Hall is the school, and I was able to meet with them last week, and it was lovely.
Cool.
And the questions that they asked, and it's such a wonderful school. It's an amazing school. So they asked a lot of really great questions, and they were asking me a lot about writing. And
Mm.
you know, if you've, I know you've interviewed a lot of authors, so the main part of writing is the revising.
Mm.
The from the first draft to the actual book that you see when you see it on a shelf. You can see books behind me.
Mm-hmm.
The number of revisions, the amount of times a book gets revised, it's
Yeah.
somewhere between 20 and 100 drafts, maybe more, depending on depending on
It's staggering. It's
it is.
totally staggering.
And to explain that to the children and to explain to them that a book that I started writing in the summer of 2016 came out in
Mm-hmm.
February of 2019. And the book that I started writing in January of 2020 is coming out in February of 2024, is
Yep.
especially for a child who's maybe, 6 or 8 years old, that number of years is staggering as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an important thing for them to understand. So
Mm-hmm.
and just like in Aliana, where she just keeps trying things
Mm-hmm.
and playing with things, and that's how I am with words. I don't necessarily play so much with light and reflection at this point in my life, but I play with words and I try different things. So I'm working right now on a critique for another
Mm.
author, and we're working on just the moving the words around, like just trying a little different. With the language, and it's fun, and it's the same sort of thing that Aliana does, but with the
Mm-hmm.
moving the marbles and the crystals and the different things that she's using to create reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yes.
doing with different language. So we all have our way of creating,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a photographer as well. So that's something that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So we have different ways of expressing our um, our art, I would say.
Absolutely. I love that you said that about the revision process because I think it's so underestimated, especially with kids. You don't realize, and it's kind of like a life lesson, like
Yes.
Control Alt Delete. There's certain things you can't ever take away, so you got to choose carefully. But at the same time, you can change and revise and rewrite and reconstruct things the way that you want. And so it's kind of like a metaphor for life too. Like revising takes time, like the process takes time. So I think that's really important to point out. And I don't know about you, but when I've done author visits, especially virtually, I'll show them the amount of revisions, even within like the book structure of like, this is what the first cover looked like. And they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah. So just so you know, when your teacher makes you change it 3 times, that's nothing. Now, let me ask you this, because you were also an educator for so long and then becoming a writer, what is a piece of advice you would offer or that you have offered students about becoming a writer?
Well, I did a lot of writing with my students. So one of the things that we would do, because I was a reading specialist after being a teacher in the classroom, is I would write with my younger students. We would write a base, a couple like 4-page book or something, and sometimes I would just create pictures, and they would have to write the sentences, or vice versa, where I would have basic sentences and then they would have to do pictures. And like I said, I don't consider myself an artist. So some children, that if they had to create the art, they'd be like, this is my favorite thing. And they would create great illustrations. Other children would say, oh, I don't draw. I don't know what to do. And I would draw with them. And I would say, this isn't my best area either, but we're all doing this today. Right. So, we all try things. And I think that's the message, right? I think that's the important piece. And then with my older students, a lot of times I would start a story and it would have multiple characters. And I'd ask them, okay, who's the main character? Where do we go from here? And then they would continue the story. And I'm laughing at myself as I'm thinking about this. And as I had 3 or 4, I can't remember now, stories, I guess, in a row where one of the characters was an older man. And one of my, this is 7th and 8th grade girls, one of the girls said, Ms. Roettiger, we've noticed, and I've noticed that you continue to have this older man in your stories. Do you have someone that you're interested in, or what's going on here? And
That's funny.
I hadn't even noticed it. And I said, oh, when I'm writing these, Riley is sitting next to me on the couch. I had an older dog at the time. And I was thinking of him, and I was writing him into the story, but I was making him human. And that was,
oh my gosh,
that was it. And so it was very funny because it was great perceptive. And I realized all of his I was describing him, but if he were human. Aww. And the struggling, getting down the stairs sometimes, or how it's just different things. And so it was really interesting that she noticed that.
That is.
And because they all knew who Riley was, because I talked about the dog also. And so it was very interesting that she said that. And but it was very fun to write with my students. So I guess I did it organically, I would say. So how to get writing with your students is to interact in the writing process with them. I also think it's important for anybody who wants to be a writer to know, generally speaking, it's certainly not a get rich quick scheme.
Right.
Right. And it's, it's not, for me, I did other things first. Right. And so it's been enjoyable. It's something I've been enjoying doing, and I participate in a lot of writing community activities. I'm very active in a lot of groups. I do a lot of continuing education in writing. I am part of a lot of different online groups. So I'm in something called 12 by 12 picture book, which is you have to join in January or February, and then it's a year-long group. And there's a forum, and there's webinars, and there's a Facebook group, and I'm very active. My preferred social media actually is Twitter.
Everybody has one.
Yeah, right. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but Twitter is my area that is my, go-to place. So, we all have our own, what works for us.
Yeah, right.
And so, we have our connections. I'm a member of SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I go to conferences. One of the things that I know that's really important is not just promoting yourself, but promoting other people.
Absolutely.
And I have a blog where I interview other authors and illustrators twice a month.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic. What about anything else that we should know about you, your books, your stories, the school visit, anything that resonates right now?
Well, I guess right now I'm sort of juggling between the two, the book that's already out and continuing to work with that. And I'm excited about the new book coming out, obviously. And I've got, I do a lot of promotion. I do, that's actually a lot of authors are introverts and don't like promotion. And I was at an SCBWI event last weekend, and a couple of authors and illustrators were saying to me, you should do a presentation about promotion.
Yeah.
So I think that's in the works, which it is definitely a place where I'm comfortable. So something that I'm thinking about, but I guess that's it. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I would assume that you're a good public speaker if you have to be in front of a classroom every day. I find that teachers are pretty eloquent most of the time.
Yes, and I'm happy doing it. It's a comfortable spot.
And so you have mentioned that you're on these social media platforms, but can you tell people what your handles are and your website so that parents, teachers, students can find you?
Absolutely. So across my platform it's LJR, which is my initials, and then it's Right Now, but WRITENOW. So that's Twitter and Instagram. And then on Facebook, I'm Laura Roettiger, my name. And then I have my website, which I'm revamping next week with it's there, but I've got somebody helping me get that revamped next week, and it's lauraroettigerbooks.com. And I have 2 giveaways a month with authors and illustrators. When I do interviews, there's always a giveaway.
Nice.
And as far as, and for teachers, parents, it's usually a book, but sometimes it's a classroom visit. Sometimes it's a, let's see, what was it today? Sometimes it's a critique for writers. So there are a lot of different, things, but there's 2 a month. And twice a week, there's something with photography. So
that's, you're busy. Keep them busy. I love it.
And that's my name, books.com, lauraroettigerbooks.com.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time and sharing your writing journey with us and what to expect in the future. It's really exciting. It's always good to have something to look forward to. So I love hearing what authors are working towards. And until next time, I hope everyone else is enjoying their journey reading and writing.
You don't have to